What drove a man who had spent his life mending broken hearts to wield a hammer against his own? That's what we're going to find out in this horrifying case. In the dim glow of the bedside lamp, an open book lay beside a bloody mattress. Its pages turned to words about a man lost in a dark forest, far from any clear path. As the first screams pierced the night, a young woman bolted from her room, her head pounding from blows meant to end her, while downstairs 2 siblings huddled in confusion. Was it all just a bad dream? That December evening in 1959 at a sprawling Spanish Revival mansion at 2475 Glendower Place stood as a symbol of mid-century promise. A place of grand ballrooms and ocean views, yet it concealed pressures building like storm clouds over the Hollywood Hills. Before the violence erupted, the man of the house had paced those polished floors, his thoughts tangled in debts that no surgery could fix, whispering half-formed plans to shield his loved ones from ruin, even if it meant taking them with him. But one daughter's desperate run to a neighbor's door cracked open the truth, leaving behind not just a crime scene, but a riddle of regret and resilience that would linger in the empty rooms for generations. Welcome. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I explore the psychological threads woven into real-life crimes like this one. Today, we're analyzing the case that's drawn endless fascination for its eerie aftermath and the quiet indicators of a mind under siege. A story where financial collapse collided with unspoken emotional fractures. I want to offer a trigger warning here. This case involves family violence, murder-suicide, descriptions of physical assault, and the themes of depression and trauma. Viewer discretion is advised. Without further ado, let's pull back the curtains and explore this haunted tale together. This is the story of the Los Feliz Murder Mansion. It started with a single invention, a plastic device meant to revolutionize heart surgery, dreamed up by a doctor chasing legacy in the shadow of its immigrant roots. In the upscale enclave of Los Feliz, where winding roads climbed through Griffith Observatory, a family of 5 carved out what looked like an American dream in a 5,000 square foot estate built in 1925. The man at its center seemed steady, a cardiologist treating patients in Inglewood, his wife managing the home with a quiet efficiency, and their children navigating the cusp of adulthood. But beneath the manicured lawns and leaded glass windows, a dark secret was waiting to be uncovered, a secret that would stain the holiday season with loss and leave a grand home echoing with absence. This is not just a story of sudden violence. It's a story of eroded trust within a marriage, the weight of unmet expectations on young shoulders, and the investigators and survivors who pieced together a puzzle from bloody pages and crumpled notes. Now, let's connect this to what we know about human breaking points, those moments when stress amplifies hidden vulnerabilities, turning a protector into something unrecognizable. Dr. Harold Perelson was born on February 1st, 1909, in New York City to Henry and Rebecca Perelson, a Polish immigrant couple where Henry worked as a printer's clerk in modest circumstances. Growing up in a bustling urban environment during the 20th century, Harold's childhood carried the echoes of his family's old-world grit, long hours for his father, perhaps stories of hardship crossing the Atlantic that instilled a drive to rise above. On the surface, his early life seemed unremarkable. For a bright kid from an ethnic enclave, good grades leading to medical school at the University of Illinois, where he earned his degree and honed a specialty in cardiology among the Great Depression's shadow. But even as a young professional, there were signs of something deeper brewing. This is where we start spotting those classic mental health indicators we discuss in counseling sessions. Patterns like perfectionism masking underlying anxiety, or a drive fueled by the fear of inadequacy that psychologists link to attachment wounds from unstable upbringings. Experts reviewing the case speculated on traits aligning with what we now call high-functioning anxiety, where outward success hides internal pressure cookers. But remember, these are retrospective views, not formal records from his time. In the 1930s and 40s, mental health support was scarce for men like Harold. Stigma around therapy meant that he powered through. He married Lillian Silver on November 28th in 1937. Lillian, born in 1916 to a family with its own immigrant background, brought stability to their union. A homemaker who volunteered at local events, her calm demeanor a counterpoint to Harold's fervor. They settled down first in Boyle Heights before upgrading to that Glendower Place mansion in 1956, a move symbolizing their ascent, with its ballroom for parties and conservatory for Lillian's plants. By then, their family included 3 children. Eldest daughter Judy, born around 1941, a poised 18-year-old eyeing college. Son Joel, 13, with his baseball cards and school projects. And the youngest, Debbie, 11, full of that preteen curiosity. From the community's view in Los Feliz, a neighborhood of artists, professionals, and old Hollywood money, the Perelsons fit right in, attending synagogue, hosting barbecues, Harold even lecturing on heart health at local clubs. Yet, as a counselor, I can't help but note how such polished exteriors often signal emotional labor. Lillian managing the social calendar, while Harold buried himself in work, which was brewing for something worse to happen. This mix of ambition and avoidance, or what we term emotional suppression, set the stage for isolation, a factor in many family crises where one partner's stress ripples unspoken into the home. Harold's invention, hyped in medical journals as a breakthrough, promised royalties that could secure their future. But by 1957, reports emerged of complications, leading patient complaints, then lawsuits piling up like unpaid bills. He filed for bankruptcy in 1959, and debts exceeded $60,000. In today's standards, that's over $500,000, and the mansion's mortgage continued to loom. Lillian, ever the anchor, confided in friends about tight budgets and skipping vacations. Hints of a marriage strained by secrecy where Harold shielded her from the full scope, breeding resentment or helplessness. The kids too absorbed the tension. Judy, the responsible eldest, penned notes about the family's worries. Joel and Debbie, sheltered in their rooms, later recalled hushed arguments over dinner. Psychologically, this dynamic screams enmeshment, a family unit where individual boundaries blur under collective stress, amplifying risk for what counselors call diffuse anxiety, where no one names the problem, but letting it fester. Harold's polished heritage, with its cultural emphasis on stoicism, likely compounded this. Men of his generation rarely sought help, viewing vulnerability as defeat. As 1959 waned, Christmas decorations went up early in the mansion. Gifts wrapped under the tree, and a gift for Harold labeled, "To the best pop in the world." Ironic tokens of a home teetering on collapse. Little did they know those lights twinkling against a hillside masked a man whose internal narrative have shifted from provider to destroyer, a betrayal rooted in distorted love. As Harold Perelson entered his 50s, his life took a sharp detour from the operating rooms to courtrooms and collection agencies, turning to odd jobs like medical consulting, but income trickled while creditors circled. To those from the outside world, he appeared resilient, a silver-haired doctor still nodding at PTA meetings, charming patients with his bedside manner honed over decades. But behind closed doors, isolation gripped him. He'd retreat to the third-floor ballroom, now a makeshift study, poring over legal briefs until dawn. His temper flaring in snaps at minor setbacks, like a delayed check. This is where things get particularly tangled in the psychological sense. Escalating behavior signaling what we recognize as major depressive episodes, where irritability masks profound hopelessness. Complaints of insomnia, loss of appetite, and a fixation on failure. These are all classic markers of depression eroding judgment. He confided fears of homelessness, projecting them onto the family as he shared a curse. A cognitive distortion counselors call catastrophizing, where one loss balloons in total loss. As Thanksgiving passed without fanfare, meals rationed. That meant no turkey. The mansion felt smaller, its grandeur mocking their straits. Herod's fixation grew on protecting his family from poverty. A delusional paternalism twisted love into control, where he imagined a mercy killing as salvation. By early December, Herod drafted unsent letters to his family, outlining debts and final arrangements, his handwriting shaky. This is a somatic sign of anxiety gnawing at resolve. This escalation wasn't random. It followed a trajectory familiar in forensic psychology. Untreated depression, compounding financial trauma, eroding empathy until self-preservation morphs into extended harm. The holiday lights strung prematurely weren't joy, but denial. A last grasp at normalcy before the hammer swing. By the evening of December 6, 1959, Herod Pearson had crossed into her irreversible territory, his meticulously planned act unfolding in the hush of bedtime. His method was intimate and improvised. A ball-peen hammer from the garage, chosen for its household normalcy, wielded in the marital bedroom where trust once reigned. His target, his innermost circle first. Lillian, asleep beside him, struck repeatedly in a frenzy born of years of suppressed fury, her final moments a blur of confusion and pleads. Then, turning to the hall, he entered Judy's room, a hammer raised against the daughter who had mirrored his ambitions, fought back that night, screaming to rouse her siblings, dodging blows that fractured her skull, then sprinting barefoot a quarter-mile to neighbors in her nightgown, blood trailing. Treated for gashes and concussion at Central Receiving Hospital, she awoke to questions no teen should face. Her resilience shining in how she shielded Joel and Debbie from details in the days after. The younger two, Joel at 13 and Debbie at 11, awoke to chaos. Harold pausing in the hall, voice eerily calm as he urged them to go back to bed. It's just a nightmare. Go to sleep. A deception that spared them, but scarred with gaslighting echo. They huddled until sirens wailed, Joel clutching a baseball glove, and Debbie whispering prayers from synagogue lessons. Tragically, the scale here was contained yet profound. One murder, one near miss, one suicide. But the intent rippled, aiming to erase the family unit in what experts term an extended suicide, where the perpetrator sees death as a twisted mercy. From the victim's lens, this was betrayal incarnate. Lillian's trust shattered in sleep. Judy's budding independence met with violence. The young one's innocent manipulated into doubt. Psychologically, for survivors like Judy, this plants seeds of complex PTSD, hypervigilance from the assault, compounded by the guilt over surviving. A burden counselors address through narrative therapy to reclaim agency. The Los Feliz community reeled. Headlines in the Los Angeles Times screamed Dr. Slave's wife and self, but whispers at observatory trails spoke of shattered illusions, families double locking doors, parents quizzing teens on late nights. But what made it worse was the era's silence on mental health. Police chalked it up to business woes without probing deeper, leaving families like the Pearsons' extended family feeling dismissed, their grief politicized as gossip fodder. Lillian's sister arrived from the East Coast bundling the kids away, but the mansion's bloodstains lingered under a hasty cleanup, a physical reminder of unchecked despair. Judy, bandaged but unbroken, gave statements with poise, her account piercing the horror, the hammer's glint, her father's vacant eyes, a moment where recognition flickered before the swing. This humanizes the math of trauma, one night but lifetimes altered, with Joel later channeling energy in the sports far from L.A., Debbie finding solace in art classes that distance the memories. In mental health terms, such events highlight betrayal trauma, where violation comes from the protector, eroding core beliefs in safety, often leading to relational hesitancy in adulthood. The neighbor's response mixed morbid curiosity with compassion. Flowers at the gates, casserole for relatives, but systemic gaps shown. No victim services then, no therapy mandates for child witnesses. As detectives taped off the scene, the open book of Dante's Inferno beside the bed, Canto 1 on life's midway lost in darkness, hinted at Harold's self-aware torment, a literary clue to his fractured psyche. Yet for the victims, it was no metaphor. It was survival etched in scars, their stories urging us to spot despair's signs before hammers fall. By dawn on December 7, 1959, the investigation indicted under Los Angeles County Sheriff's Homicide Unit, spurred by Judy's frantic call from the neighbor's line. Thanks to rookie deputy named William Holman, who responded first and secured the scene amid flashing lights cutting the hillside fog. The case cracked open fast. No manhunt needed, just a coroner's grim confirmation. A critical moment came hours later when Judy, stabilized at General Hospital, recounted assault in detail. Her father's approach, the hammer's whoosh, her dive under the bed before bolting. This led investigators straight to Harold's body, slumped beside Lillian's, bottle of sulfuric acid vial nearby. His grip loose on the hammer, crusted with evidence. Forensic techs noted the acid's burn on his lips, and toxicology later confirming overdose, while blood splatter mapped the room's frenzy. Arcs from the bed to the door aligning with Judy's path. But it wasn't straightforward. The sheriffs faced jurisdictional snags with the city's edge location, plus the family's reserved life, relatives shielding the kids from media hounds at the hospital. Still, Judy's composure proved pivotal. At 18, she had ID'd the weapon from photos, her testimony bridging gaps in the younger siblings' foggy recollections of the nightmare lie. And obstacles mounted fast. In 1959, forensics lacked DNA, relying on fingerprints and autopsies, while Harrah's bankruptcy files sat sealed, delaying motive links. Key figures like Detective Lieutenant Joe Byrne refused to stall, canvassing neighbors for Harold's recent demeanor and uncovering clinic colleague tales of its despondent rants on the valve suits. Lillian's family offered probate insights early, but emotional walls from the aunt slowed child interviews. A pivotal breakthrough hit mid-morning. Judy's car in a driveway yielded a sealed envelope to an aunt pinned days prior. My parents are in a bind financially. Same problems, only tenfold, exposing the debt trigger. When authorities searched the study, they uncovered Harold's entries on suicidal ideation from November. Red flags ignored in protocol then. This mosaic, note, book, vials, painted extended suicide intent, with the hammer's purchase traced to a hardware run 2 weeks prior, alibi shattered by stored receipts. From law enforcement's view, it was a closed file by evening. But challenges persisted. Media sensationalism twisted facts, labeling it doctor's madness without context, fueling stigma that delayed mental health reforms. Yet, breakthroughs like the Dante volume, its forest metaphor mirroring Harold's lost path, offered investigators a window into delusion, where he saw killing as guiding his family from darkness. By week's end, the scene cleared, but echoes lingered. Blood traces on the rugs, a half-eaten holiday cookie on the counter, clues tying domestic normalcy to horror. This phase underscores forensic psychology's role, piecing behavioral breadcrumbs from erratic prescriptions to neighbor sightings to prevent repeats. As the gurney wheeled out Lillian, the community's resolve hardened. Vigils at the synagogue, funds for the kids, turning investigation into collective healing. In the pre-dawn hours of December 7, 1959, Harold Pearson's world imploded under his own hand. His body discovered rigid from the poison, he gulped pulseless salt. Foam at his mouth, a final testament to desperation. This brought a hollow relief to the survivors. Judy, stitched and sedated, learned of his death via the social worker's gentle words. Her sobs mixing grief with terror's end, but questions hung, like why the kids were spared mid-rampage. And lingering mysteries persist. No full confession, just that unset note in the Infernal's pages, leaving debates on whether delusion or impulse ruled. The case scarred Los Feliz, the mansion padlocked, its contents untouched, becoming a neighborhood relic where kids dared each other to peek at the faded gifts through grimy panes. Families like Judy's extended aunts finally got logistics closure, relocating the children to New York relatives by Christmas. But emotional voids yawned, holidays forever altered, and trust in physicians frayed. The case exposed the 1950s mental health voids, psychiatrists siloed, no crisis intervention, societal blind spots to men's depression. And these are reminders why we advocate for accessible care today. Now, as a licensed professional counselor, I'll share my speculations on the psychological and mental health indicators here. These are only my speculations as not a diagnosis. Herod's trajectory points to severe major depressive disorder, amplified by situational stressors like bankruptcy, where hopelessness distorts reality into an all-or-nothing thinking. If I can't provide, no one should suffer alone. Betrayal angles loom large as well. In extended suicides, perpetrators often view violence as loving release, a cognitive betrayal of family bonds, rooted perhaps in Herod's attachment style, secure in provision, but crumbling when it failed. For Lillian, the ultimate victim, this manifests in intimate partner betrayal trauma, her trust weaponized against her, a dynamic counselors see in domestic cycles where financial secrecy erodes communication. And Judy's survival introduces survivor guilt, a mental health hallmark where why me loops trigger anxiety. Her quick job hunt post-hospital hints at hyper-independence as coping, which is common in adolescent trauma. The younger kids faced indirect betrayal, Herod's nightmare lie imprinting disassociation, potentially fostering avoidant patterns in relationships, as Joel and Debbie's low profiles suggest. We don't have all the records to know or identify if Harold had childhood trauma, but immigrant upbringings often carry abandonment echoes. Father's long absences fostering a provider complex that unmet spirals to despair. Overall, this case spotlights nurture's role. Untreated depression plus stigma equals volatility, with clues like the open book foreshadowing a mind adrift in metaphor. Post-crime, Judy rebuilt quietly. She married and raised a family in the Northeast, but she passed in 2018 at 76 from natural causes, her obituaries noting a life of quiet advocacy for women's health. Joel pursued engineering, settling in the Midwest with kids of his own, occasional interviews revealing therapy's role in processing the what-ifs. Debbie, the baby, channeled creativity into teaching. Her Los Angeles return in the 80s marked by community work, including mental health fundraisers, a nod to turning pain outward. The family who bought the property in 1960 for probate never resided there, using it for storage until their son inherited it in 1994, maintaining it minimally amid cursed rumors. In 2016, attorney Lisa Bloom purchased it for $2.7 million. Planning renovations but selling in 2021 after disputes. By 2023, it defaulted on loans. And as of October 2024, it's listed at $3.6 million. Its history, a sales footnote. This resolution tempers the tragedy. The house, once frozen, now eyes rebirth while survivors' lineages thrive, underscoring resilience's quiet power. This case lingers with me because it lays bare how mental health fractures can hide in affluence's gleam, turning a healer's hands against his family, a stark call for us to listen beyond the surface. What do you think about this case? How does a double life of debt and denial evade detection so long in a tight-knit spot like Los Feliz? How did a doctor go from success to failure to murderer in such a short amount of time? Thank you for joining me today, and until next time, stay curious, stay safe.